welcome back to Brianna in Counseling. This is a channel where I documented my journey from school counseling all the way up until I get my private practice. So today we're going to be going over my book reviews from the past month. In January, I read 9 books, but I only liked 8 of them. I didn't like one, so I won't be talking about the one I didn't like. I do want to focus on the ones I did like, so hopefully you guys can also want to read them too. Please like and subscribe for this video so that the algorithm can do its thing and that my video can be pushed to people that really want to watch it. So without further ado, let's jump right into the video. So one of my favorite books I read over the past month was Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. This book talks about the difficulties and the dark side of the publishing industry, the background and the behind the scenes of Booktok, and what authors experience while trying to make it big in the industry. It talks about racial identity, cultural awareness, and cultural appropriation a lot in this book. It's a woman named June Hayward who is a struggling writer, and she has a friend who is very, very successful in the industry, but that friend is Asian American while she is a white woman. So she feels as though her friend Athena is gaining a lot of traction and recognition because she's Asian American. She has the Asian community as well as the people of color community behind her, so she feels as though it's not as fair. Athena ends up dying, and June takes her work and publishes it as her own. So it explores the themes and narratives behind that. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't know what was going on in this book because this is another one of those times where someone recommends me a book. I'm not a typical person where I look into what a book's about before I pick it up. I kind of want to be surprised. When I found it, I was like, okay, I'll just get the book. And then when I started it, I was so confused because yes, I read books, but I'm not on Booktok and I don't think about authors' lives, but it gave me a different perspective based on the things I didn't know at all that authors and authoresses were going through. I will say I did not like June. I didn't like June at all. Not a one bit in this book did I like that girl, but the author wrote the book very beautifully. I think this tells a very realistic story, but I just don't like June because she's defensive and she steals people of color's work to profit as her own, and I think that is something that is very common, so it needs to be talked about, but that just makes me not like her. And I rate Yellowface definitely at 4 out of 5 stars. I didn't think I was going to even enjoy the book, and it took me a while to get through it at first, and then about halfway in, that's when I really started liking the book. So I really do recommend it, and I rate it a 4 out of 5. All right, the next book I read was Side Hustle: From Idea to Income by Chris Guillebeau. Do not get mad at me if I messed up on that name. I didn't mean to. I'm trying my best. This book, it gives you some insight on how you can take your ideas and things that you're interested into, and also gives you examples of ideas if you can't think of any, so that you can start a business on your own. If you want to create something that is a passion and change it into something that's a business idea, that's a great thing, and I really recommend this book. The key thing to realize in this book is that this book is just a stepping stone. It gives you a plan and a layout so that you can take the ideas and actually turn them into actions after the fact, after you're done reading. This book can really help you with your time management skills as well, because it will tell you how to implement all of these steps into your already busy day. And I rate that book a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Adelaide by Genevieve Wheeler. And let me just tell you guys, I absolutely adored this book from start to finish. This book talks about self-acceptance, mental health, sexual assault, being in relationships, being in situationships. So the relationship in this book is very, very one-sided. And I think a lot of people would relate to this book. I think a lot of women especially would relate to this book based off the things I hear about and see on a daily basis on social media, for example. I kind of got hooked on it from the beginning when they talked about mental health right on the first few pages. This book kind of stood out from the beginning, but then it talked about so many other things that a lot of people go through, a lot of women go through. But if you've skipped over this book on a recommendation list, you need to read it because it's not what you think it's going to be at all. Family, friendship, situationship, relationship, sexual assault, mental health awareness. But I do want to read this book again someday. It's still too fresh on my mind for me to feel like reading it now, but I do want to read it again eventually. And I do rate this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Now this next book, You guys can count it as a book if you want to. You cannot count it as a book if you don't want to. Doesn't matter to me. If you don't count this book, I still read 8 books last month. This was an Instagram quotes type of book, and I did go through all pages, and that's why I count it as a book I read. Moving forward from now on, I'm going to be looking up synopsis for books instead of just picking up stuff, because I have a tendency of I'll go to the library, look for something specific, have backups, and some of those backups are usually just me picking things off of the walls and just picking up anything that catches my eye. And this caught my eye. I did not know what was going to be inside, and I checked it out, got home, realized it was an Instagram quote / poetry type of book. So that's the only reason why I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5 stars. But the actual content within the book, I would give it a 4 out of 5 if it was written into a story format. Now, these next 2 books, you guys have probably already heard of them. If you haven't, you've been living under a rock. These are Hunger Games and Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins. I rate it a 5 out of 5 because just as good as the movie is, never read the book until last month, but just as good as the movie is, the book is amazing. If somebody can recommend me a book like Hunger Games, I would love to read that. And I see why they made it into a movie. It's amazing. Hunger Games is one of my favorite movie series, and that's the reason why I picked up the book. I'm not going to get too much in the synopsis right now, just because I think everybody kind of understands what happens in those movies. But it's just Katniss Everdeen. She lives in this country where they take children and they push them out into a televised event to be basically murdered in front of everybody. So the synopsis, and Catching Fire is a continuation of Hunger Games. I plan to finish Mockingjay and the new Snakes and Songbirds book this year. I need to figure out when the new Haymitch books comes out, because I would like to read that as well. 5 out of 5 stars for both books. They're amazing. The next book, and actually this was the first book I read of the year. I read this on January 1st. Is The Mountain Is You by Brianna West. The thing about this book is that it has so many mixed reviews, but I actually loved it. But at the same time, I didn't love it. I didn't love it fully, but I can't say it was bad. I rate it a 3 out of 5. This book is like talking to your best friend. This book tells you everything that you kind of already know. I like it because it tells you again if you haven't heard it in a while. It is nice to have reminders in the back of your head. It's kind of like affirmations in a way and positive self-talk. So it tells you get your stuff together, but in a nice way. Good luck with how long the wait times are for it on Libby, but if you can find it at your local library, you can buy it. That's great. And the last book, I cannot rank this book. Yes, I give it 4.5 stars, but it's to the point where it's like neck and neck with Adelaide. I love this book. I actually didn't like it for the first like 2 or 3 chapters, but then I started getting into it. The Vanishing Half narrates the multi-generational family that starts with the slave who created this town for his black family, and it tells the multi-generational family from him. So his great-great-great-granddaughters, and they are twin sisters named Stella and Desiree. The 2 sisters, they end up living completely different lives. Stella, she becomes a completely different person. Won't spoil it for you there. Desiree, she moves on and she experiences a lot of bad things. You can see how opposite their lives are because of the things that they've chosen to go through their life. Stella chose a certain type of man to be with, and Desiree chose a certain type of man to be with. I do want to say that if you are to read this book and you are noticing the types of men that they both chose to get the outcome in life that they got, take that with a grain of salt. Do not internalize it so much. Take it with a grain of salt, because for both parties, all of the men in that category do not fit the bill and will not act like that every single time you see them or experience them. I would like somebody, if you have read this book, to comment down below to tell me which character you related to the most. I'm just curious. I feel like I relate a lot to Kennedy in a way, and if you've read the book and you know who Kennedy is, take that with a grain of salt, because I'm thinking of it in a completely different way than you might be thinking. I just think that we have the same type of way we grew up, and that has led us to become a certain type of way. Please like, subscribe, comment on this video. Tell me if you've read any of these books. Tell me what you think about these books. Tell me if you would like to read any of these books. But I would just like to hear some feedback from you guys if you can. And I'm so glad you watched this video all the way to the end. So thank you so much for staying with me, and I will see you guys next week. I've been very busy the last few weeks with my practicum work, studying, gym. Hope to see you guys next week. Catch you later, and remember, Brianna takes care.